I kept myself in the dark for a very long time. I remember telling a therapist I was broken, and she said, I'm going to challenge you on that. She said, you're not broken, Mark. You put yourself in the darkness for a very long time and you stop growing emotionally. It's time to put yourself out in the light. And here's the thing. The problem is when you've been in the dark for a long time, the sunlight can be bright. It can be hard to deal with. I didn't know how to deal with that. And that's what these 12 steps help me with. I'm recovering. I'm learning that I can fly, actually. But that doesn't mean that I know how to work those muscles. This is not a program of figuring things out. It's a program of letting go.
Hi, I'm Barb Nangle. I want to welcome you to my podcast, Fragmented to Whole, Life Lessons from 12-Step Recovery. If you're tired of feeling fragmented and overwhelmed, this podcast is your guide to creating a life of wholeness, authenticity, and healthy boundaries. I'm a woman in recovery who is also a boundaries coach and speaker. I share raw and honest insights from my own journey and the principles of 12-step recovery. Discover how to set boundaries without guilt or shame, overcome people-pleasing tendencies, manage your emotions effectively, cultivate a stronger sense of self, and build healthier relationships. My approach is raw, honest, and sometimes a little bit, a lot sweary. I'm an avid beachcomber and a formerly closeted fan of the Hallmark Channel, especially Christmas movies. I wear fingerless gloves almost all year round because my hands are always cold. And I love taking pictures of license plates with my initials BN on them. I don't speak for or endorse any particular 12-step program of recovery. Though I'm a huge fan of 12-step recovery and a member of two such fellowships, I cannot speak for them. If you're ready for real talk and practical tools for transformation, keep listening.
This is episode 310 with guest Mark, and the title is It's Hard to Get Off the Ground When Your Wings Are Cut. I cannot tell you how excited I am about today's guest. This man has been one of my most influential 12-step teachers since almost the very beginning of my time in 12-step recovery. I have gotten so much experience, strength, and hope from him. And I've wanted him on the show for a long time. And for whatever reason, it just hasn't worked out. And now he is here. So without further ado, I would like to introduce my friend, Mark. Mark, welcome to Fragmented to Whole. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you very much, Barb. I'm really grateful to be here with you. I'm excited to kind of finally have our opportunity to kind of connect in this way. And I'm very humbled by everything you said, but so
There's evidence right there of your being a 12-stepper is the fact that you've got some humility.
I've been given that, and I get it on that reprieve on a daily basis, to be totally honest with you. I have that part of myself inside me, that part that isn't really right sized, that goes on that arrogant side of things and that low self-esteem kind of things. They're both tied to the same wound.
Forgive me, everybody, for coughing. I've been sick for a while, which is why I had a re-release of an episode last week because I was so bad. There was no way I could record. So forgive me for coughing. But I'm going to let you start wherever you want to start, whatever the beginning is for you. And I'll pipe in if I feel like I want to get clarity on something or burning question I have for you. How's that sound, Mark?
That sounds perfect. Hi, everybody. I'm Mark, and I am a person deep in recovery. Or we talked about this a little bit, and I am in 4 different programs. I have the actual gift of that, and I say that because I'm in recovery for eating disorder. I'm a compulsive overeater. I also have a sex addiction around porn. I am a compulsive spender, and also, I am in a program that, for me, and again, my father was an alcoholic, so I'm an Al-Anon. But the thing is that is that in reality, the underlying thing underneath all of those things is I have this concept within myself, this sort of idea within myself, this pattern within myself of managing other people's perceptions of myself because I have a God-sized hole. And I say this all the time. And when I first came in, I came into to Overeaters Anonymous. I came into my program around my eating disorder. That was the first one I came in because I was 519 pounds at that time. Now, I don't know how much I weigh now. I do weigh myself. I do it blindly with my nutritionist and with my doctors and those that need to know. But I was 519 pounds at that time. I was 525 pounds, the highest weight I ever recorded. I had a 78-inch waist when I came in April 2007. And I have like a 36-inch waist now. I still have extra skin, kind of a thing. That part never went away. I just sort of, yeah, I think I had always thought I would do something about that. But you know what? In all reality, it's kind of like it got taken away, that piece around whether I need to change that. But I always say this, I am in 4 programs, but I'm not working 48 steps. I'm just working 12. And that was a really important thing for me to hear. And I do want to kind of interject something real quick. Look, this is my story, my journey through recovery. Please take what you need and leave the rest. All of this was stuff that was shared with me. Yes, I did the actions and had the willingness to go out and to find it and to collect it. And I'm going to kind of probably bring it all together in a certain way and how I present it out. Certainly that's me. This is really about what was shared with me and what I did with it. And, I think in the big book on page 164, it talks about these are suggestions only, but it also says we know only a little. And there is so much humility in that statement after reading those first pages that it blows me away. But there's such truth in that too. There's such rigorous honesty in that I truly love it. But I'll just go into a little bit about what I was like. I grew up in a family, this dis-ease, I always call it, because it really is a lot about, my discomfort and my God-sized hole. I cannot remember a time in my life that I was ever not a compulsive person by nature, right? That I wasn't a compulsive eater. I wasn't a compulsive spender, all of that kind of stuff, because it really highlights that self-seeking behavior on steroids. Because I was always looking for something outside of myself to fill myself up. That self-seeking is selfishness's sophisticated cousin. And it really is that thing of where I'm looking outside of myself, looking to fill myself up because there's a hole. And I'm constantly, I have this monkey mind that I built in the middle of my wounds and my disease and everything else. And here's the thing, because it gets to the really heart of this program, trust God, clean house, help others, that trust God part. It's really hard to do that when that monkey mind is chattering so loud, there is no room for God to enter in. So again, this disease started before I came in. My mother was a compulsive overeater. My father was an alcoholic. My mother's father was an alcoholic. I have people that struggle with all of these diseases that I have throughout my whole family. So it started way early. I think, and one of the things that has really been very important for me is in the big book on page 544, I believe, essentially freedom from bondage. That story has been a huge piece of my recovery. When I read that, it just was like hitting me right between the eyes. That statement on that first page of that story, I am the result of the way I reacted to what happened to me as a child, was a huge thing for me to hear. And they italicized way I reacted. And why that's so powerful for me is if you remove that, it says I'm the result of what happened to me as a child. Well, guess what? If that's truth, I'm in deep trouble. Because then it goes on to say through this simple program, I may experience a change in this reaction pattern that will indeed allow me to match calamity with serenity. And that has been the forefront of this program for me. Being able to match calamity with serenity. And later on in the thing, talk about humility again. At almost the end of the story, the writer basically says, and I'm going to paraphrase here, my program is one of complete sobriety. I no longer need to escape reality. I mean, that's what I was doing. That's what my addiction was about. All of them was about me escaping reality. I was never present. Again, monkey mind. I was always out there trying to get out there. I was out in life trying to get out ahead of any pain that was coming in so I could stop it. There is another problem, that discomfort part, because pain is inevitable. Suffering's optional. I grow through pain. This is the thing I could not realize. I could not have a concept around. After they talked about that, I no longer need to escape reality. They say, my only problems now are when I break out in a rash of self-will. Right. And that's a powerful thing for me to hear. Right. And I'll expound upon that a little bit later. But basically, my childhood, right, my drinking was a symptom of a deeper trouble. Same thing, freedom from bondage, right? My eating was a symptom of a deeper trouble. My compulsive spending, all of my addictions were a symptom of a deeper trouble. And that deeper trouble for me was that God-sized hole. I cannot remember not being a compulsive person my entire life. But I also cannot remember not having that God-sized hole my entire life. And I tend to feel like fear falls into three big buckets. There are thousands of forms. But to me, the ones that stand out are not getting what I want, losing what I have, being found out. All of those fire off from me. But the one that I think is like tied strongly to my God-sized hole is being found out. That I don't measure up, that I don't fit in this world, that I don't have enough, I don't know enough, I'm not enough. That is the fuel that drove my addictions. Plural. There's a movie out there called Wages of Fear, and I really believe that is essentially what the wages of fear are, is this sort of bondage of self that it gave me. That's what it was. Again, it's hard to get off the ground and my wings are cut. I always had this concept that I would talk to people before I heard that quote that somebody gave to me. I always had this concept of that I was like a chicken who could fly. Like I thought I was a chicken. That my concept was I was a chicken, but in reality, I was an eagle, right? I could fly, but I did not know it. And I wasn't living what I was meant to be, what God would have me be. I wasn't living any of that. I was living in the middle for 42 years of my life before I came into the 12-step programs. The best word, and it is a word that's said a lot in the program, is oblivion. I was just lost, flailing about, trying to survive. This program is about helping me to thrive, not just survive. I didn't save this life to not have a life. But let me just tell you this, when you live your life in darkness for a long time, and again, it was never fully dark, right? It's like a pendulum, dark and light, right? It's always a balance between, before I came to the program, it was much more dark. And the thing is coming into these 12-step programs, the thing that really was very powerful for me was I came in, I recovered from the substances, from the processes, from the things that kind of kept me stuck, those character defects on steroids. Which my addictions kind of were, my compulsive eating and compulsive spending, the things that basically I was using to try and, in some weird way, try to save me. I mean, I always say this, around food. Food is not my problem. You can say this around all my addictions. Food is not my problem. Food was my answer. It just happened to be an answer that was killing me. And so when I think about these pieces, that's the part that kind of kept me stuck for a long period of time. And I'm going to kind of gravitate, the easier one to talk about is my compulsive eating. I'm just kind of gravitate, sit in that, but all of them share the same thing. I am a truly just compulsive person in that there was not enough substance or whatever for me to get that would quote unquote fill me up, right? I was like a cup without a bottom. You could put whatever you want in there. I wasn't going to get full up until I was given this program. I was given a higher power, and then that higher power became that bottom, and I could be full. Right. But where I was going with my comment was the fact that as I started recovering and letting go of those things that were killing me, and I was coming into the program, and I always thought my problem was food or was spending too much or whatever. That was not my problem. The thing about it is as I move forward in the program, here's the deal. Now I'm presented with life, and I don't know what to do with that. This is the real reason for these 12 steps. They keep me sane and happy. This is the design for living that works in rough going that I need to have on a daily basis. Because I kept myself in the dark for a very long time. I remember telling a therapist I was broken. I was broken, and she said, I'm going to challenge you on that. She said, you're not broken, Mark. You put yourself in the darkness for a very long time and you stop growing emotionally. It's time to put yourself out in the light. And here's the thing. The problem is when you've been in the dark for a long time, the sunlight can be bright. It could be hard to deal with. I didn't know how to deal with that. And that's what these 12 steps help me with. I'm recovering. I'm learning that I can fly, actually. But that doesn't mean that I know how to work those muscles. This is not a program of figuring things out. It's a program of letting go. It's not a program of learning. It's a program of unlearning. And this is the work that I'm doing every day. You know, when I talk about character defects, I remember being in a workshop and working on, they were asking questions about the defects and it said, how has this character defect affected your life? And then they said, how has it diminished your life? This is what they do. I now kind of almost call them, well, I call them character defects so people can relate. But in reality, I almost think of them as diminishments. They diminish my life. That's what happened in living in the way that I lived with the faith that I had for 42 years of my life. I was diminishing my life. I got very good at living with the crumbs that I gave myself. From an early age, I was 200 pounds in ninth grade, and I lost a bunch of weight and went down to 150 pounds. I thought I was going to be okay at that time. I was like, okay, that was it. I just lost the weight. That was it. That was my problem. Now it's going to be okay. And I remember reaching out and asking some girl out, and and she said yes, and then she said no after that. But the really all of that really that part didn't really matter. What mattered was my reaction pattern, because my reaction pattern in that time was okay. See. That validated everything I thought about myself. Feelings are not evidence of truth. They're evidence of what I'm putting my faith in. Where was my faith in that moment? Was it in my higher power? Or was it in the lies that I was telling myself about myself and the world around me? The bondage of self. It's hard to get off the ground when your wings are cut. That is really about the bondage of self for me. So I lost that weight. And what happened after that? I went up to 250 pounds. Then I went down to 175 pounds before college. Then I got into college, and here I am in a place where I was feeling like I had a God-sized hole. I had a place by myself where I could just numb out, right? With nobody around, nobody seeing, like I was at home trying to hide things under couches and stuff like that to kind of like stay in like secret. I also had that God-sized hole riding along. So here I was in college, and I think about this, and it's not like I consciously said this to myself, but when I think about it, I'm like, yep, that's exactly it. I was frustrated that I didn't know it before they taught it to me. That's because I struggle with discomfort. A God-sized hole that was telling me every day that I'm not good enough. And so I would cut myself off. Would I really be who I really was? No. I'm 60 years old. I'm still working on my sort of who I am kind of thing, right? How would anybody know who I am? I really, for a long time in my life, I never really was who I was. Authenticity and attachment wounds, right? That's where some of this stuff came from. And so for me, I have a mission statement for my new rebranding. It's World Meet Mark, because they've never met Mark before. Listen, some of you guys in program, you've met me, you've seen me. Some of my close friends, they see me, but so many times, like what's really crazy is I remember before I came to the program, I had a therapist who told me, tell me about Mark. And I told her what I did for a living. She said, that's what you do for a career. Tell me about Mark. And I didn't have an answer. That's the gift that I'm getting in this program. So I'm in college, and I know I'm flitting around a little bit, but I was in college. Came in at 175 pounds, that God-sized hole. By the time I got out of college, 1990, I was 300 pounds. It's like the wages of fear. And then after that, it was really a slow climb up to 1998. I was 525 pounds, and I moved home with my parents because I didn't really know what else to do. I had a business partnership with somebody and we closed that business down because I remember thinking at the time it's because we didn't see eye to eye. And that's not true. I was 525 pounds, barely surviving and trying to survive and barely even living life. And this other guy was working his ass off trying to kind of really make it happen. And I was killing myself. And I moved home and then lost a whole bunch of weight. I went down to 375 pounds, just again, just treating the symptom. And all my other addictions are going on at the same time. So it was just taking everything away. And it wasn't long after that that I just got back into the same thing, right? I was treating the solution. I couldn't really stay, abstinent because I really wasn't even doing it. I was just trying to follow a food plan and try to not spend too much and try not to, get on the internet too much and that kind of stuff, just barely trying to survive. And it wasn't long after that, 2006, I was 419 pounds or 489 pounds, I think. And I was in a hospital thinking I was having a heart attack, but it was really my blood pressure was crazy out of control. And three doctors were in front of me telling me that I was going to die if I didn't stop doing what I was doing. But the crazy moment in that was the fact that I remember telling myself inside, I need to be scared of what they were telling me. That's a lot of money. A pulmonary guy, heart guy, and a general practitioner telling me that I'm going to die if I don't stop doing what I'm doing. But what I was really scared about was that deer in the headlight, God-sized hole being found out. That here's this person that can't even take care of himself, that is a mess laying in a bed. And that was one piece, but one trumped that. One other fear trumped that. And it was what they were asking me to do, to give up my quote unquote friends. I could not imagine a life without those things that I was using to medicate myself with. But I remember they gave me a food plan and I was like, I'm going to do it this time. But it was a month after that, I was in a hotel room eating enough food for a family of 8 to 12, probably, until I couldn't even walk. But what was really important, the reason why that's an important milestone in my life, was that was the first time I said, I can't do this by myself. And I always remember saying when I was sharing my story early in the program, that was the first time God talked to me. And that's not true. That was the first time I listened. And then I came in this program April 18th, 2007. We're coming up there. I got, 19 more days, maybe, God willing. And I was brought into the 12 steps, and it changed my life. I wouldn't believe it, by the way, but I kept moving forward. That is a big difference for me. Remember that whole concept of me, like when I was talking about college and not knowing what they were teaching me before, like I always had to know before I did anything, which meant I did nothing. I'm still recovering from that part. And so here I have this thing where I'm moving forward. My legs are moving. Even if my mind is telling me something else, my God, that saved my life. That was hope. And I didn't even know it. I mean, they say this is a program that we don't believe, but we do it anyway. And it ends up being the most important thing we've ever done for ourselves. Oh my God, that's exactly truth. I think the piece that I was kind of putting out there is, when I came in, the honesty of coming in, really, I wasn't really there, but I was honest enough to know that it wasn't working, right? I had that. I had the gift of desperation, GOD. That's the only reason I did it. It's only at the brink that people find the willingness to change. I mean, that's what it took for me until the pain of staying in disease got greater than the pain it was going to take it away. I didn't move at all. So in this crazy thing, all of that, my life falling apart around me, gave me the willingness to move forward. And I didn't know at the time, but it really was this thing of me really coming to terms that I had two choices: living life on a spiritual basis or death by my disease. And then that took me, and I'll end on this, but that took me into step 2, aim to believe that a power greater than myself could restore to sanity. And I struggled tremendously with that. But here's the thing about that step. And really it's built in all the steps. But for me, that was the moment where I got it, where I kind of like came to believe. and didn't really even really know it. But it really was about me getting out of the way. I think that step also, as I look back in recovery, the other component of that step for me was like hope for me now is I know what happens when I work this program and I know what happens when I don't work this program. I know that sounds crazy, but it's essentially it means, well, how's your program, Mark? My only problems now are when I break out in a rash of self, and it really is about coming back, keep coming back, but not just like leave. Yes, I don't leave until the miracle happens, but it also is keep coming back to God, keep coming back to myself, keep coming back to my food plan, keep coming back to my spending plan and all of my plan, keep coming back to these 12 steps and 12 traditions and 12 concepts and all, just keep coming back. That's really all I need to do every day is every day just keep coming back. Because again, if God is my North Star and I'm rowing a boat on an ocean towards it, all I have to do is keep rowing. It doesn't have to be perfect. But if I stop rowing and I start drifting off course, I go into dark waters and I might not ever come back. And I think that's what was given to me at that
Yeah.
stage when basically somebody said act as if, and and they told it to me a bunch of times before I did it, before I heard it, before I actually heard it and listened. But then that changed my life.
I've been on the brink of tears many times in listening to you. There's so many things I want to lift up. You just talked about like being on the brink or what many of us call hitting bottom. And I had a conversation with a client the other day. She says, I'm stuck in mediocrity and my life is better than it was, but it's not good. And I said, yeah, the problem with mediocrity is there's no real impetus to change because it doesn't suck bad enough. And this is one reason why hitting bottom can be so important for so many people in recovery. So you mentioned being in the dark and going out into the sunlight. And the problem when you've been in the dark all this time is that the sunlight is really bright and it's hard to take. And it reminds me of something that somebody that I met in OA said to me that before she got in recovery, it was like she was wearing her shoes on the wrong feet her entire life. And she got into recovery and she learned to put her shoes on the correct feet. But it felt really weird for quite some time because she was so used to the discomfort of having the shoes on the wrong feet that it took her a while to get used to this is normal to have the left foot in the left shoe and the right foot in the right shoe. And I just that I've held on to that for so long. That's such a powerful metaphor that I think most people can understand. You know, you very briefly touched on a substance addiction versus a process addiction. And I think you're the first person that I ever heard that terminology from. Would you mind taking a moment and just sharing what your understanding of what that means? Because I think a lot of people haven't heard that distinction.
Happy to do so. But number one, not an expert, not whatever. And I'm basically paraphrasing based on my collective. Again, by the way, my food addiction is identified and I don't know where it is now, but this is what I like in my little bit of looking at the way things are categorized in the medical the wellness and medical practice, right? Essentially there's a process addiction, there's a substance addiction, there's also emotion addiction. There's other kind of components. There's like four of them that I know, and I'm not really sure of the other two exactly what their names are. But essentially, food is actually put in process addiction. And I would be like, oh, really? But you know what? Here's a big thing. Let it go. Move forward. It doesn't really matter. Understanding is unimportant compared with doing. Not unimportant, but compared with doing, unless it changes my trajectory, unless it moves me towards recovery, it really doesn't matter. And half the time in my life, well, not half the time, much more than that, I wanted to know it before I did anything. And I wanted to basically figure out a way to kind of like avoidance is one of my major character defects. And there are so many forms of that. So I'm smart, right? And I say that almost wanting to kind of like not say that. But the point is I'm smart. But that's my problem. because I can justify anything. Somebody told me that. They said, Mark, look, your addiction, you're smart. We're all smart, right? But that's what keeps me stuck in my program because I use that gift that I was given to keep me stuck. What happens if I then use it in a way that gets me freedom? Feelings aren't evidence of truth. They're evidence of what I'm putting my faith in. And like a person in a eating disorder around like anorexia can sit there and look in the mirror at the same time their body is, forgive me, consuming itself because it doesn't have enough nutrition in. And they believe, their faith is that they believe that they are morbidly obese, that they are wrong and whatever. And that is the power of faith. So it's transference because it's a faith that does not work. I mean, I'm not giving up food, right? I'm giving up the compulsive behaviors and the destructive behaviors. And in reality, it's like, what happens when you take that faith and you turn it around and put it in? Like, I was killing myself one bite at a time. That is powerful. So what would happen if you transfer that? Could you imagine what I can do? And I've seen it. And that doesn't mean my life is like but to go from where I was to the point where I am now, it's a miracle, quite frankly.
Yeah, absolutely. There was something else that you talked about was your monkey mind. And you said, when I'm in monkey mind, I have no room for God. And I think that's
Yeah.
all of us. And I think this is one reason why, for me anyway, meditation has been absolutely profound in terms of my recovery, because what I've done is trained my mind that I can bring it back to whatever it is that I want to bring it back to. And if I can do that, if I can learn how to do that on a regular basis, then I can learn to bring my mind back to God instead of to the litany of BS that's going on in my head. And I wonder, I don't think you and I have really talked that much about meditation. What's the role of meditation in your life?
For me, and again, it's really good that you it's a really crucial piece for me. However, let me just tell you, in my trajectory of my recovery, you know me, I don't have a problem with talking. If prayer is talking to God and meditation is listening, you know me, I don't have a problem talking. What do you think I have a problem with? Listening.
Okay,
I've said it
listening. All
so
right.
many times, right? So for me, my meditation is keep coming back. It's about me clearing out the monkey mind and the things that I tend to connect to the most. The work I've done on my meditation are the ones where I'm really listening to my body and I do body scans and I do focusing on certain things. I go out in nature is a really key thing. I even find things like when I'm preparing my food, trying to make it meditative, like being present with the process, being there, right? Because for me, that's what my listening is about. It's not. This will be a thing that I'll be doing until I'm off this mortal coil,
Mhm.
right? It's just practicing and it's okay. I just
Yeah.
keep bringing myself back, keep bringing myself back. The same way with this program. That's why the 10 step perseverance is so critical. All I have to do every day, just keep coming back, just keep coming back.
Is there anything else that you wanted to share that you haven't had an opportunity to share?
That's a good question. It's going to be similar to what we just talked about, but I'm going to talk a little bit about humility. I mean, you know me. We've talked about like taking a problem through all 12 steps,
Mhm.
right? You know how, the 4-step process, and I do it kind of very similar to Big Book where I do 4 columns. Like when I would talk about a resentment, let's just make it simple and just talk about that. And those 4 columns. One of the things that was given to me in this program, and I'm going to get to humility here in a second, because I mean, again, it's when you turn your defects over. It's not me. Like, again, I always thought, oh, damn it, I'm going back to it again, instead of, God, please take it. That was my early trajectory in that. And what I've learned is that process, when I look at the 4 columns, the first column, like person, institution, principle kind of a thing, and then I look at like what happened, those 2 columns, that's just life.
Mm.
That is life coming up. And you and I have talked about this before. Then the next 2 columns you have, like for me, the third column is instinctual drives. The last column is my part, right? The line between 2 and 3 is the reliance line. Because where is my reliance at that moment? Is it in self-reliance, God-reliance? Because wherever it is of those two, it changes what happens next. And so I'll ground myself into what I was bringing up around humility. So the third column, and it's really talked about a lot more in the AA 12 and 12, those instinctual drives. They're instinctual drives, right? Right? Self-image, which is self-esteem, what I think of myself, pride, what I think others think of me, right? Security, food, shelter, emotional, physical, right? Then you've got ambitions, my goals, drives, and plans for the future. You've got personal relations and sexual relations. Those are the instinctual drives. Those are what God wants me to have met and protected every day. Those are human needs. And here's where we get into humility. I'm supposed to have those met and protected, but when I'm cut off from God and I'm in the middle of fear, it's really a matter of me overexpressing or underexpressing those. Like we talked about a little bit earlier, and essentially around my humility in myself, right? I go on both sides of those coins. For me, it's about being right-sized. That's what my program is. And the same in all of those things. Yes, I need to be secured, right-sized. Not self-centered fears, right? I have enough. I am enough. Those kinds of things are important. But what happens is when I'm cut off from God, I'm going overexpressing or underexpressing those instinctual drives. And again, when a situation happens, like in the first two columns, and I'm cut off from God, I feel like those are threatened, right? So what happens? That's what my character defects are for. They're built for me to go out and grab them, to satisfy those. But the problem is, again, overexpression, underexpression, that's what's happening. I'm being selfish. I'm being self-seeking. I'm being dishonest. I'm in fear. I mean, these are the things. This is what happens. They are almost the wages of fear. That's what's going on there. And for me, humility, I've realized my plan of eating is humility. It's right side. It's not gluttony. It's not deprivation. My boundaries, right-sized. They're not walls to attack from or walls to keep people out. They're to connect me with people and to be okay and to be myself and know where they start and I stop. That's what they are. They really get me out in the middle of life. But yet I can so easily underexpressed or overexpressed. I could be using them as weapons or I could be cutting myself off from people. That monkey mind, there's probably right size in that too. In some way, there's there's some gifts that I have. And this is the thing, my greatest strengths are my greatest weaknesses and vice versa. So the thing about it is getting them all right sized. And that's humility. And that happens again, step 7. This is me giving them to God, having God take them away, my character defects, which means getting me right sized. And that really gives me a lot of comfort. My balance in life, my love's unconditional, but my time's not. I could fight that all I want. Right? So it's really about that. So anyway.
Well, thank you. My goodness, this is so jam-packed with so many gems and so much wisdom, and I so appreciate you. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and I sincerely hope that you got as much as I did from listening to my friend Mark. Thank you again, Mark.
Hey everybody, Barb here, and I've got something special for those of you ready to take that next step. You know I'm all about breaking free from old patterns, right? Well, I'm offering a limited time opportunity to experience my coaching firsthand. For just $600, you'll get 3 powerful 60-minute one-on-one coaching sessions with me via Zoom. Think of it as a deep dive into whatever's holding you back, relationships, transitions, or just getting real with yourself. Plus, you'll walk away with a personalized action plan and video recordings of each session to revisit whenever you need a boost. Here's the kicker. If you love what we do in those 3 sessions and decide to join my 12-week program within 30 days, you'll get a full $600 discount. That's like getting these sessions for free. This isn't just about talk. It's about transformation. If you've been listening to the podcast and thinking, damn, I need that, this is your chance, but spots are limited, so don't wait. Head to higherpowercc.com/clarity to book your sessions now. Let's get real, let's get vulnerable, and let's get you moving forward. That's higherpowercc.com/clarity. If you like this podcast, and I'm guessing you did because you're still listening, you will also love my weekly newsletter, Friday Fragments, which has short essays similar to the podcast. You can check it out at fridayfragments.news. That's fridayfragments.news. If you haven't already subscribed to my podcast on your favorite podcast outlet, please do that. It helps carry the message to more people. I started this podcast because there was so much wisdom in recovery that just wasn't making its way out into the world. So I want as many people as possible to hear it. I'd also love it if you'd leave a 5-star rating or a review, which you can do on Apple Podcasts. It helps other people find it so they can get the benefits that you've gotten from listening. If someone in particular came to mind when you listen to this episode, please share it with them. And my favorite place to hang out on social media is Instagram. I'm at Higher Power Coaching. Please DM me there. I'd love to hear what you got from this episode. I run private and group coaching programs on building healthy boundaries. Whether you need help with boundaries in your personal, professional, or romantic life, I can help. Head on over to barbchat.net where you can get on my calendar for a free 30-minute Better Boundaries consultation. I also do short-term situational coaching to help people make it through specific situations they're going through, such as divorce, empty nesting, preparing for retirement, or any phase where their identity is shifting. Regardless of the type of coaching, my ideal client is someone who is ripe for change. If that's you, I'd love to work with you. My goal with all my work is to help you make lasting changes in your life, like I've made deep, lasting changes in my life. Remember, it's never too late to recover. No one is beyond hope, and healing is possible. Thanks for listening.